Within our section, we heard from 5 countries, and what's most interesting, all these 5 countries have their own particular model, which, as we saw from the report of comparative analysis, it's sometimes hard to class it either as centralized or decentralized. The academic circles sometimes maintain that even if the country can be decentralized, the benchmark can be this country at a different period of time or another country. So the first presentation came from Switzerland, and we call it decentralized model. And decentralization allowed for the government model to become result-orientated. And I think that the unemployment rate speaks for itself. The model is highly efficient. As a result of the reform, which surprises me, and quite frankly, the report from Ms. Baskakova surprised me in saying that there was no reform in Switzerland. I think they had one quite recently. So their conclusion was, first, reform needs to be piloted in regions and then disseminated throughout the country. For example, in Switzerland, the reform was piloted in 2 regions, then results were evaluated, and the reform then spread out to the rest of the country. As for Norway, it recently concluded a large-scale reform, which is, in our opinion, the perfection of the perfection, because Norway is renowned for its highly efficient employment service. And now, at the local level, both state and local services are available to the user. And for the user, the most important thing is the efficiency of the service, which is the case in Norway. And the Norwegian speaker mentioned that these results are very characteristic of the reforms that were carried out in Norway, which are aimed at specific client groups with special needs in the labor market. And these measures are suited to the countries with low unemployment rates, such as Norway. And each time we look at the findings or at the presentations from a country, we need to take into account the macroeconomic factors, including the unemployment rate. So next we heard from Turkey, where an interesting model is in action. So I'd say it's very pronouncedly decentralized, where delegation is made at the local level, and an interesting framework of interaction is in place. Local councils that bring together both local authorities and social partners, which is a different way of creating the employment service. In the presentation by the Czech Republic, we saw that over a long period of time their system was decentralized. However, time showed that after the so-called Soviet era, they transferred to the centralized system, and now they are reevaluated and see that they need to make some centralization efforts. So, and an important piece of advice was given that one shouldn't carry out abrupt reforms, which was the case, by the way, in the Czech Republic. The Russian employment service, which is about 20 years old, has always been decentralized. So now we struggle to identify whether we're centralized or decentralized. According to the survey, we are decentralized with centralization elements, whereas the so-called control functions are more concentrated at the central level. And the speaker from Russia underscored several problems that are characteristic of the current employment service of the Russian Federation. In particular, a vast number of regulations need to transfer from fighting unemployment to stimulating employment. And what kind of directions to take for the Russian employment service. For example, why not come back to the insurance, voluntary insurance principle? For example, Mr. Tarakanov today mentioned that the portal can offer the opportunity to participate in the voluntary employment insurance. So apparently people are starting to seriously consider this. We need to take measures to make concealed employment as registered employment. Also, ideas were voiced about reforming definition by objectives. So I think the speaker really meant result-oriented approach rather than objective-oriented approach. And one more thing, development of private-state partnership. So we can say that in Russia, with significant decentralization, we experience the need for further reform, and we need to consider it at all levels. And the exchange of opinions showed that despite difference of opinions, decentralization is an obvious trend. Among positive factors, which were mentioned by all speakers of decentralization, I mean, localization of working with the labor markets and prompt response to the change of situation. And when Ms. Baskakova mentioned that budget management wasn't highlighted in their survey, so we had it mentioned in our section. Promotion of competition and direct contact with employer were also mentioned as positives. In terms of negatives, they were few, such as difficulties for the centralized body to coordinate all the regions. And I would like to draw your attention to the following conclusion made at the section. So we needn't be looking or passing judgment on effectiveness of this or that country or region without taking into account the peculiarities of that region. So we need to adapt and localize based on the experience that we gather from such unique events as ours. And looking at the efficiency of the employment service, we can say that it's not about the model of the employment service, but rather about government methods, management methods. So, and I think that we've had it covered, at least touched during our event. So this is in a nutshell what we discussed at the section I facilitated. Thank you.